recording. There we go. And then we will start sharing screens. And just for everyone watching, what rank did you in last season? Okay, Plat. Okay. Ready. And then which game is it going to be on your match history? The 9-1? Okay. Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Wait, what is this border? Does that mean they're unranked? Oh, wait, yeah. I'm stupid. Start of the season. Okay. Sorry, my brain's a little... Okay. Alright, so here we are. Switch the vision. There we go. Okay, I was kind of concerned because you're walking up by tower, but now we're being useful. Okay, good. Sitting here getting information. I like it. You're not placing your word yet. I like it. I like it. Good. And unfortunately, I think the jungler actually starts up here, but he doesn't start blue. That's okay though. We still get a good value word here, so this is really good. Very nice. So, who are we up against? We're up against Gangplank. Oh, was this the one we were going over yesterday? Okay, are you sure you still want to do this one? Do you want to do a different one? Or do you want, like, what do you want to do? Okay, what, okay, what questions do you have? Because we can, I have time. We can go over the parts of this that you have questions about, and then we can do the other one. Right, so we talked about this one. We clear as much as we can, and then we leave a few minions because it's going to take too much time to clear them, and we instantly recall because we have, this is a good time to do it. And again, when we're in these situations, we want to recall as fast as possible. So if you're actually in a good position where you're not taking minion aggro and you won't for a couple seconds, then I would just recall on the spot. Like, if I kill someone under their tower and there's a wave under the tower that's protecting me from taking tower damage, then I'll literally just recall under tower. Because it saves you the extra 3-4 seconds of walking up here and then hitting your recall in a bush. But if there is a concern of safety, or maybe the minion wave might walk up, then it's better to just go into the bush and recall. But we want to be as efficient as possible, so try to get those recalls off as soon as we can. And so we talked about this one. Holy moly. Okay. Okay, this is starting to become a problem. Okay, so why is this? Why is the position we're in an issue? Exactly. And what'd you say? What was that last part? Yeah. Why is sitting on gold an issue? What's the issue with having a lot of gold? Because gold's a good thing, right? What's the issue with having a lot of gold built up? Yeah, exactly. Until we translate that gold into items as zero value, zero value. So we could be really far ahead right now. We could have lots and lots of damage. You're level 6. Let's see how much gold you have. You have 1,600 gold. That's at least a team at, and then So, like, that's a lot of damage that you're missing out on right now. So we could be maximizing our damage if we would have recalled earlier. So we shouldn't be sitting, unless there's a reason to, we shouldn't be sitting in gold for this long. Especially, like, if it's level 6, we haven't recalled yet, there's some kind of issue going on. Okay. So this is good. This is good. So is this a good freeze by him? Why? Yeah, right? He's too low. Why? So why is, yeah, exactly. So when you get back, he's forced to stay in lane. He barely has mana. He barely has HP. So even though he might deny you maybe a wave, worst case scenario of minions, right? The issue is that he forced himself to stay in lane when he can't defend the wave. He can't take control over the wave, and it doesn't benefit him in any way at all. So this is actually really good for us that he's doing this. And I think maybe he's realizing it here. No, he still doesn't. Okay, this is just troll. So he breaks it up, and now it's pushing into you. So you have the option of crashing this or freezing this. Or, sorry, yeah, it's freezing, slow pushing, whatever. Okay, so I'm good with the crash. That's good. I probably would have, we already talked about this. We could have gotten a plating there. That's okay, though. Skip through to our recalls. I like this. They're getting scuttle here when, yeah. So this is the perfect time to get scuttle. Like when there's nothing to do. Your jungler is going to hand bot. We probably, because of where Yi is, I'm not sure if we talked about this specific situation, but either Hecarim's on Dragon or he's topside. I think we talked about this yesterday. So you clearing the scuttle is actually nice because this could be taken away from Hecarim, potentially, if he's coming topside. As long as it's giving you resources while you're waiting for the wave to come up, so you're not missing anything. But also we're taking away from Hecarim as well. And... oh, he's dead. I didn't even see that. Yeah, so even more so, this is good. If you know he's dead, you could even go and invade and steal one of these camps. But Scuttle's worth a lot more. So just because Scuttle's up here, I would take that. So that was very good. Okay, so here, I'm okay with this. Okay, let's see if you animation cancel your R here, because I guarantee you do. There's absolutely no reason to do it. Oh, we don't. Okay, perfect. Then you win this. Very nice. Okay, good. I don't even think you used your E. But I'm glad you didn't animation cancel it, because I see that way too often. We talked about it yesterday. Need to be animation canceling for a reason. Okay. So you can see if we're pretending like we're the other person, he's actually making a lot of mistakes here. Like the fact that he's just shoving the wave in, he's not damaging the tower at all, and he's just sitting here in vision is really bad because he's not really accomplishing anything. Yep. Yep. He could reset, he could roam, he could invade. So many different options for him, so it's kind of just a waste of resources. I like this. Yep, we wait for his recall, we confirm it, and then once it's confirmed, we crash. Perfect. Good. Good. I like that. No, I think it would have messed up your timing, your tempo. I think that's good. Because some people might even argue that you should go for platings here, but the issue with going for like a plating or staying for an extra wave is that when you recall, he's going to be coming back onto the map with a minion wave. So he's instantly going to push the next wave, and then you're going to get denied a wave. So this is perfect. We kind of already talked about this. There are some points I'm going to re-go over again today when we go into the next game. Just because this I'm recording this, so I want to make sure the audience catches some of these concepts. But I won't go into too much detail if it's something we already talked about in detail yesterday, because I don't want to waste your time. Okay. So this is something we kind of talked about yesterday as well, right? But you need to make like we kind of need to be thinking here, because a lot of people in these situations, when they're low HP, they try to they just stay as long as possible because they don't want to get denied XP and gold, right? So they stay on the map. They don't want Gangplank to crash and for them to lose the wave. But what is worst case scenario here for us? Yeah, right? Like, let's say Hecarim comes up. Hecarim could easily tower dive you in this situation. And we don't even know where he is on the map right now. I mean, he's probably bot side. But assuming we don't have information, we should be prepared for worst case scenario. So if he's top and he dives us right here, we die, they clear this wave. Rift's not up, but they could potentially get Rift and then get our tower, or they could just sit here and get a bunch of platings or kill our tower. So it's not worth staying in lane when there's not much to gain from it, and the risk is higher than the reward here. Sure, we might get an extra wave or two, but the risk is that we can die and lose way more for that. So in this case, we should 100% cut our losses, give up the wave because we are in a disadvantageous position. So we should give up the wave, recall, and come back after giving up the CS. It's better to just do it, because again, assuming worst case scenario, Hecarim, if we don't have information about Hecarim, he could be up here at any given time. So like staying for a cannon wave could mean that Hecarim gets a kill off on you in like 3 games out of 10. You know what I mean? So sometimes when we're at a disadvantage, it's like we can't turn it into a good situation. It's still like either way it's gonna be really shitty. Like we're probably gonna lose a wave no matter what. But at the end of the day, losing one wave is gonna be better than dying and potentially losing multiple objectives on top of waves as well. And then XP too, because when you die in those situations, like you pretty much lose your lane, you're gonna be 2 levels down. And then also you have to think about this cost as well, right? Because we're low, we have to play further back. So we're giving up a lot more CS than we normally would if we were healthier. We're losing a lot more gold than we would normally. So there's also that cost that cost as well. Yeah, luckily here's another thing you can do. So we actually just had it happen, right? But um, so one thing that I haven't talked much about that's very, very important is we did talk about it actually yesterday, but we have to kind of activate our teammates. Like we have to help them make optimal decisions, right? So if we spend time building up a slow push, we shouldn't just expect our jungler to go and dive, even if our laner is diveable. We should be communicating like, hey, this is a really good dive, you should be up here. Because otherwise, a majority of the time, unless it's like super high elo, people aren't going to be paying attention and not recognize that this is a good dive opportunity. So if you're in this situation and let's say he has a nasty freeze built up on you, right? And you don't want to recall because it's like you're gonna lose multiple waves if you recall, right? What I'll do is I'll just, again, we talked about this yesterday, sit in a place where you can not be seen but get XP, right? Soak the XP up, but also call your jungler up here and ask for assistance, pushing the wave out. And then your jungler can come up, get the wave pushed out for you, help you get a good recall off so you don't get denied a lot, and then you can go back to normal. So that way we can break up those nasty infinite freezes that people can do without putting ourselves at a significant risk. But our junglers aren't going to be looking for this stuff, especially in Plat, Diamond, Emerald, even in Masters, right? You need to be communicating and letting them know, like, I need assistance. Or even for ganks, I will ping, like, hey, this is an optimal gank. Or I'll type out, like, let me move this so you can see. I'll type out, like, um, top lane doesn't ward and is overextended. Something like that. Or I'll just spam ping assist pings when I know my jungler's top side or looking top. You know, just communicate with people, but also you want to activate them so they can make the most optimal decision. Don't take that as like everything should be about you, right? If like don't have the jungler sit in your lane all game long to the point where it that bot lane gets punished for it and gets stomped unless there's a good reason for it. But just understand that if we expect our teammates to make a move or work a certain way, then we should communicate that because they're probably not on the same wavelength as us. Does that make sense? Okay. And was the recalls the only thing you had a question about, or was it team fighting, or was there anything else? Right. So we talked a little about holy crap, words are hard. We talked a little bit about this yesterday. Um, this is nice. Very nice. Good combo. Very clean. I like it. So it's very good that we're winning, but if we're sitting in lane all game, we're only affecting. Let's say we win 100% of or sorry, we win lane 100% of the time. Every single game we win our lane. We're still not guaranteed to win more than 50% of our games. Because the issue is that mid lane can still lose and bot lane can still lose, right? So we're not really affecting anything except for our lane, which, don't get me wrong, is a good start. But doing that by itself isn't going to help you climb. What we need to do is have an impact on the other lanes as well. And we kind of talked about how we could do that yesterday, and I'll sum it up very shortly. But we build up big waves with slow pushes, and then we crash those waves. We can go look for roams. We can help the jungler secure a jungle, like an invade, or we can help them secure objectives, or we can help. We can build up a wave before an important team fight or before a dragon, right? Like 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes before dragon, get the wave to crash, and then go help with the dragon, right? We can do stuff like that. And then for bot lane, we can lane swap with them. If we're winning and they're struggling, we lane swap with them. They should win the 2v1 top lane, especially against a weak top laner. And then we can win the 1v2 bot lane because we're solo laner and we're fed. And we could even ask for the jungler for assistance if we're not too sure, right? So those are things we can do to affect the different lanes. And so we affect mid with roams, we can affect bot lane with lane swaps, and we can affect jungle by having prio or finding good opportunities to assist and invades and contesting objectives, etc. Right? So that's how we assist in the laning phase. Now the issue is when we get out of laning phase, things change a little bit. So this is kind of what we talked about yesterday, but I'll sum it up kind of quickly again. We need to decide, and we need to be constantly reevaluating, but we need to decide what our win condition is throughout the game. And we talked about this yesterday, but sometimes you'll have an overall win condition. Like the overall win condition is a team fight because we know we win team fights. But then we could have a lane win condition as well. Like for lane win condition, maybe we need to fight early because we're against Poppy, and once Poppy gets W, it's an easier lane for her, right? So we want to fight her at level 1 and level 2, force her off the wave, deny her XP, etc. So we get the advantage early. So sometimes you'll have lane objectives, but then we'll have the overall game objective too. So if we know we win fights, then we should always take fights because we know we win fights. And when we win fights, we get objectives off of that. And objectives mean towers, they mean inhibitors, etc. Right? Um, on the other hand, if we know we don't win team fights, then we shouldn't team fight, and we need to make sure that we communicate to that to our team as well. Like, hey, we don't win team fights. Just let me split push. Or something that I'll say all the time is I'll be like, don't team fight. I will carry in the side lane. I always say like really positive stuff like I will carry, or you guys can rely on me. Just don't overextend, that kind of stuff, because it gives people hope and kind of motivation. Like, so that it takes the stress off of them. Um, but so it could be split pushing, right? If we don't win team fights, but we win lane, we could split push. Let's say we lose team fights and we also lost lane, and then we can go for picks, or we could go for scaling. So for picks, you want to get deep vision or decent vision, right? And then we want to deny the enemy vision in that area. So something good you could do is deny vision around Baron Pit and then get some good deep wards into the jungle, and then the enemy team doesn't have information, so they're gonna have to face check something in order to figure out what's going on around Baron. And so that's what you can do to get picks. For scaling, let's say we know we have a scaling team comp. In that case, all we have to do, excuse me, all we have to do is drag the game out so that our team can hit that threshold to where we start winning fights. So all we do is make sure that all lanes are constantly pushed out. We don't want waves crashing under towers, because that means that the towers could take damage and potentially a champion could fall in with that wave and do additional damage to the tower. So you want to kind of keep control over the side lanes and obviously the mid lane as well, but more importantly the side lanes. And let me see. So we have team fighting, split pushing, scaling, picks. I feel like I'm missing one, but for the sake of this, those are kind of the main things. So for team fighting, right? In this case, it's a very close game, and we actually have the advantage. But in close games, I would argue that team fighting is always a good solution. And we kind of talked about this yesterday, but team fights are really good because one team fight can just snowball you for the rest of the game. You wipe out the enemy team, they're getting denied all that XP and gold that they could be getting if they're alive, but also you're getting gold for killing them. So it's a net gain of a lot of gold, right? But then also we have the opportunity to secure objectives and deny them from the enemy team, or invade and deny camps, right? So with that in mind, if the game's close, or a team fight can make the difference between our win or lose, then I would recommend grouping and looking for a nice team fight for your team. And so we kind of talked about dragons, and again, I'll summarize this real quickly for the audience, but you contest the neutral space here early. And the reason we do that is because everything leading into the dragon area is a funnel. So we want to get to uh, the dragon neutral space before dragon comes up. So we beat the enemy team there, and then we secure this area. So they're forced to come into those thresholds, and we could even get vision in some of the bushes to get a better a better base of control over that area. So yeah, with that said, whenever we want to go to dragon, we need to be there 30, 40 seconds early. But as a top laner, we can't just leave lane at any given time, right? We need a good crash to leave the lane. Sometimes there are exceptions. Sometimes I'll just push in one wave really quick and then I'll immediately rotate. But in this case, if we know that an objective is coming up, we should prepare in advance. We build up a slow push, and then we crash into the tower. We can go assist in the objective. So that's dragons. Barons are kind of the same thing, so you can do that for Baron as well. But again, if we win team fights, we should be trying to group around these objectives. We should be trying to force fights, right? So you want to be very competitive about contesting these areas and contesting these objectives because, you know, worst case scenario, the enemy team doesn't come and you get a free objective. But best case scenario, they come, they contest, and then you kill, and it snowballs your lead. So let's just go over macro real quick, really basic macro. So obviously the Nexus is like the most valuable thing in the game. Anything you can do is not as valuable as the Nexus, because if you kill the Nexus, obviously it just straight up ends the game. So Nexus is the most important thing. And then from there are obviously these two towers, right? Because we have to kill the towers in order to get access to the Nexus. So these towers have a very high priority because they open up the Nexus, the Nexus, right? And then from there, so on and so forth, right? And then we have the inhibitors that we have to get, and then we have the towers we have to get. So these towers are very, very valuable because it opens up a pathway. It denies vision. It denies, you know, a source like a safety net. So it gives us more control over the map, right? But also it's working towards that overall goal of getting to the Nexus. One tower down means one less tower that we have to kill to get to the Nexus. So the biggest priority for us is going to be the easiest, most obtainable objectives. So first is going to be the outermost tower in our lane. And once we kill that outermost tower, this is the next tower. This tower is no longer easily obtainable, right? We have to work kind of hard for this. We have to manage our waves well. We have to get good vision control. We have to be concerned about getting ganked by multiple enemy players. We're overextending further into enemy territory, right? So it's no longer an easy obtainable objective. The next easy obtainable objectives are going to be these ones, the other towers and the other lanes, right? So the mid tower, the bot tower. And the great thing about getting these towers is that they give us gold, gives our team gold. So you get the top tower. Let's say you're dominating versus Gangplank. We get Rift, we get top tower, we break the tower. Perfect. Now, instead of staying in the lane and trying to force your way through this tower, which is going to be really hard because it's not an easily obtainable objective, we lane swap with bot lane. We go bot lane, we take their tower, this outer tower. Boom. This tower's gone. So now we have this tower, we have this tower, gone. Now what's left that's easily obtainable is this tower, right? So then we can lane swap with whoever's mid. We go here, we break this tower, and now we have a bigger control over the map, but also we've cashed in on all this easy objective money. We're going to be a lot richer now compared to just trying to power through this one lane. And then it also helps with objectives, right? Because we deny this vision, the power, the safety net of the actual damage the tower, right? And we deny all the information leading up to the Baron, up to the Dragon, so we can get better control over these areas. And then from there, it's kind of rinse and repeat. We go for this tower next, or whichever tower, because it's the easiest, most obtainable objective. And then we work our way kind of around the map like that. But this is assuming there's no team fights happening, because obviously, in the case of a team fight, this all changes. So what I will say is that team fights are probably the most valuable thing in the game. And it's kind of funny because we were just talking about the Nexus, right? Like, obviously, the Nexus is the most powerful or the most valuable thing in the game. The issue is we can't just kill the Nexus at any time. And sure, towers are important. But why would I say team fights? Do you know? Yeah, why is that important with what we've discussed so far? Yeah, e- 'Cause- 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 Exactly. So the big part that you mentioned was that we snowball, right? The more team fights that we win, the more team fights we will continue to win as long as we keep up that pressure, we keep taking advantage of the gold lead that we have, right? But also, and more importantly, or maybe not more importantly, but also as well, um, it helps us secure towers because if we wipe the enemy team 5-0, they don't even touch us, right? We're pretty much guaranteed an inhibitor if it's past, I don't know, 15 minutes, maybe even less. We're pretty much guaranteed an inhibitor if we push together. So that's why these can be really effective because we can kind of break out of this, oh, we're just going for the easiest objective possible. Now we can just powerhouse through one lane and get a bunch of objectives at once. So that's why team fights are going to be the most valuable. So if your win condition is team fights, you want to make sure that you team fight. Force them into awkward positions where it's like, well, they either team fight with you or you get a dragon off of it. And dragons are important because they kind of give us that snowball ability. If we build up a bunch of dragons, we get really strong. We get extra stats permanently, which we can use to kill more people, win more team fights. Winning more team fights means more objectives, right? Same with Baron. Baron gives us the capability to push waves, and do lots of damage to objectives. So it's also very high priority too, right? So if we win team fights, again, priority is going to be taking team fights, forcing objectives, or forcing the enemy team in a bad, precarious situation. If we're split pushing, we want to try to stay on the opposite side of the map from where the priority objective is. So let's say we know that Baron is the priority objective. They're contesting Baron. Or the two teams are contesting Baron, right? The issue with pushing up here is not only do we make ourselves vulnerable if our team doesn't have good control over this neutral space, but also we can't really accomplish much because it's easy for them to rotate and defend this tower, right? Whereas if we're fighting down here, we're attacking the tower down here. The issue is if they have, obviously, with split pushing, if they have their whole team up there, then they could potentially lose this tower without contesting, and you could even pressure more off that, right? So always want to try to stay on the opposite side of the map as the active objective. And I'll also say, if you know going into the game that you're probably going to have to split push, that's going to be your win condition, then you should go TP. Because it wouldn't make sense if you know your win condition is going to be to split push for you to take Ignite. Because Ignite is just for lane, right? And I would also say this, like, if you know you're going to lose a lane, I would take Teleport. But if the lane's, like, neutral or it's a winning lane for you, then you can take Ignite. But yeah, that's split pushing. Do you have any questions about that, about anything so far? Right, so it's important. What do you mean? Okay, right. Right, so this is why we mentioned earlier that it's important that if we expect something of our teammates, we should communicate that with them. So that's why I was talking about typing, like, hey, I'm split pushing, this is our win condition, blah, blah, blah. And sometimes people will argue with me, like, no, we should team fight, like, our win condition is team fighting, whatever. And sometimes they're right, so I'll change my mind, like, oh, you know what, he has a good point, we do have all these advantages, let's try to team fight. But in most cases, if people understand that it's the right call, then they will listen, especially in, like, Plat. So, hey, our win con is split pushing. Do not take fights. That's something that I say all the time. Do not take fights. Just apply pressure. Just apply pressure and let me split. That way they understand you're going to be side lane, you're not going to be able to assist them, and that their focus now isn't going to be team fighting, because a lot of people will autopilot and they'll see a good fight and they'll jump into it and then they'll die and they'll look bot lane, they'll be like, what the heck, bro? Riven's split pushing bot lane? Like, you're so stupid. Why would you be split pushing bot lane? Well, while Riven was split pushing bot lane could kind of be an issue in this scenario, it's actually more of that person's fault because they engaged a fight when Riven was bot. They shouldn't have engaged that fight, right? So this is why we kind of tell them in advance, like, hey, we're going to be split pushing. This is what I expect from you guys. Like, I don't want you guys to be team fighting because we don't win team fights. And then, again, not all the time people won't listen 100% of the time. That's just how things are. Like, even in Masters, Challenger, Grandmaster, etc., right? But if we communicate in this way, a majority of the time people will listen. But as long as we're consistent about it and we're telling them how we're thinking, we will be able to climb very efficiently. So that's just the idea. Be consistent. Sometimes, you'll have people that are just straight up trolling or whatever, or they don't want to listen to you. They're better than you, blah, blah, blah. You suck. Like, nothing you say should matter. Sometimes that happens. But if you're consistently making the right decision, then you will be able to climb, period. Any questions about that? Did that answer your question? Okay, perfect. So yeah, just to reiterate, so when you are sidelining with Ignite, just notify your team again. Hey, I'm sidelining, I don't have TP, I can't assist you guys, do not fight without me. And sometimes, pivoting's important. Like when I have Ignite, sometimes I'll pivot. So we'll shove a wave in here, and then we see that somebody rotates down bot lane. So even without having Ignite, we can kind of have the same effect as if we have TP. We could wall hop into their jungle and then make our way up to the Baron and come from behind the enemy team, get a flank off on them, and force a 5v4 while this person bot lane is still farming and clearing that wave that you built up. So it really kind of depends on the scenario. So be very mindful of what's going on and be very willing to change, your train of thought or your win condition or whatever, kind of based upon the variables that you have. And that's something that a lot of people don't understand, is that, like, everything is variable. Like, will vary in every single game. The same build is not always effective in every single game. The same runes are not always effective. The same macro is not always effective. So you need to, with everything you do, you need to kind of analyze, like, hey, is this the most optimal thing for me? And if not, then we should change. And we kind of need to be constantly asking ourselves, like, does this play into our current win condition? And if it does, then okay, let's do it. If it doesn't, then okay, let's switch things up. Make sense? Okay. We kind of talked about picks already. If we're going for picks, we go, we can clear vision. You don't even, it doesn't even need to be around objectives, but it's definitely good for objectives. I'll go in a minute 30 before an objective comes up, go in, clear vision. You can have someone come with you and you just sit in a bush when you know there's no vision there. So that's when sweeper is really good. And also getting deep vision is really nice as well when you're doing this, because it just gives you more of a safety net. Just having that information of where everyone's at. And then the last one, scaling. This is pretty self-explanatory. Just keep waves pushed out. Contest objectives, but don't like suicide or throw the game over objectives, right? But kind of just wait until you get to that point where you know you win team fights. And in the case where you do not have a win condition, you're looking at your team and you're like, this team does not have a win condition. Those are the games that I dodge. It's like, oh, there's absolutely no way that we could win this. Like, there's nothing going for us. We don't win team fights. We don't win solo lanes. There's nobody that has a winning lane. There's nothing, like, the jungle matchup isn't good, blah, blah. We can't split push. We can't do this, blah, blah. Then those are the games that I dodge, so that we can keep ourselves out of those scenarios. So another thing is we'll just go over team fights real quick. because I know a lot of people in Plat will get lost in team fights. Generally, decision making is pretty good, but sometimes they can get lost in team fights. So we'll talk about it just a little bit. So, oh, are there some? Did you die? Yeah. Okay. Oh yes, yes, we saw this. Right. So yeah, well, we talked about this yesterday, but just if you're pushing past the threshold, we need information. Otherwise, we shouldn't push up. And again, I kind of said this yesterday, but let's say I push up past this threshold, I don't have a ward to put down, then I'll back out, I'll go into this bush, I'll break vision, go into this bush, and then I'll sit here in XP range. So that way I can still get XP, but I'm not taking a risk when I don't have any information. And obviously, if the jungler doesn't see anybody in lane, they're less likely to gank. But yeah, but if we're in this position, we want to get vision down, and I also kind of mentioned this yesterday. But if we see that our team, like, you know what, I'm not gonna say that because that can be very misleading. We'll just leave it at that. Okay. So, okay, what the heck is going on here? Okay. So, what kind of information do we have here? Okay, so we see Hecarim. This, I actually would not take this. Yeah, I just don't think we have enough information. Like you, so I think we see maybe one person before you do it. Maybe. Yeah, so you're hitting it right now, but we actually don't see anybody. So you could literally just be going straight into their team. Like their team could be sitting right here. They see you hit that, and then they all just move over. So if you are going to do this, I just wait till we have a little more information. We know it's safer to do this. I do like the idea though of getting control over this flank space. This is really good. I like that. But I think we just jumped on it a little too early. But generally, there's a couple of things we want to focus on during team fights, and it kind of varies based upon, again, our win conditions. So let's say that we're really fed, right? We're like 20-0. Do we want a frontline for super? Not, no, probably not, right? Maybe we're building like a bruiser, in which case, sure, yeah, we can frontline. But if we have 20 kills, we don't want to be frontlining because we're just going to be taking a lot of free damage when we should be dishing out a lot of damage, right? So what should we be doing instead? How should we be positioning? Yeah, exactly. So you either flank, or we could kind of sit in the back and kind of wait for them to make a huge mistake and capitalize on it. But I prefer to flank because it's a lot more consistent. There's less chance of you making a mistake as long as you play it well. So this flank is really, really good. This is when you're fed, right? So when you're fed, generally you want to try to flank, give yourself access to the carries without having to get forced off of them by the tanks. Sometimes you don't get fed in lane, or sometimes you're against a matchup that forces you to build like a bruiser. Like if I'm up against what's an example? Yeah, Renekton. Renekton's a perfect example. You don't build straight damage versus Renekton, because then he'll just one-shot you, and you will never be able to kill him in one combo, unless you're like super fed. So you're going to be building HP, you're going to be building Bruiser. So in that case, should we be flanking? Probably not, right? There are some circumstances where we could argue yes, but in the majority of the cases, we should not be flanking. Instead, we can frontline depending on if we're like what kind of tanks we have, right? Sometimes I'm the only tank, so I'll build like tankier, or I'm the only person that could potentially be a tank. So I'll build tankier, I'll get a Randuin's, GA, blah blah blah, even a Thorn Mill, depending. But in this case, if we're Bruiser, we can either frontline if we need to, we don't have another tank, or we sit in the back line. Or I guess in the middle. We could sit in the middle between the carries and the tanks. But why would we want to do that? Why would that kind of position be advantageous for us? Kind of sitting in the middle between the tanks here and the carries here. Yeah, exactly, right? We want access to our carries. We just want to be able to peel them so they can do put in as much damage or have as much damage output as possible. So at that point, if we're building Bruiser, the focus isn't on us to carry, it's on the literal carries. So we need to kind of change our mindset from, oh, I have to jump in, engage, solo carry this fight, blah, 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 to, okay, well, we're kind of focused on making sure that these guys survive as long as possible so they can do damage. So then that's all you do. You just stick around the carries. When someone jumps in on them, you defend them, blah, blah, blah. It's very, very simple. Something that can happen is maybe you're the only form of engage, and you can't let the enemy team engage on you because they have a really good engage. In that case, your job's going to switch from someone that's peeling to somebody that's engaging. But in most cases, if you're a Bruiser, you're either going to frontline or you're going to peel. And then obviously, if we're just a straight up tank, then we should be frontlining. And sometimes people might think it's weird, like, oh, Riven as a tank, that doesn't make sense. Sometimes it just happens. Sometimes I'll get into games where we don't have a tank. Like maybe I first picked Riven, and then none of my teammates chose tanks, but we still have good win condition. In that case, I'll just build tanky myself. And even games where like maybe I get really fed, right? But the enemy team has all 5 AD champs, I'll still build like a Thornmail and a Omen, even though I'm really fed, because we already have the damage. We're just building defensively, right? So we deny them a lot of damage to us. So it really just depends. But if we're a tank, we're going to be focused on frontlining, and then obviously if our carries are close to us, we can peel our carries as well. But the main focus is just going to be frontlining, looking for a chance to engage, but generally like taking valuable damage, taking damage that actually does something for your team. Now, if you're just sitting here and the AD carry is pushed up and you're just getting auto-attacked by the AD carry and there's no trade-off for it, then that is not valuable damage. That doesn't do anything for your team. You're just dying for free, right? But in comparison, let's say the enemy tank engages on you. Well, that's kind of valuable because now the two tanks are fighting and it allows your carries to step up, right? Or maybe this carry steps up to attack you, but because they step up, they're out of position, and now your assassins can jump onto them or your carries can start getting onto them. That's valuable damage. Or maybe you're peeling, and instead of your carry soaking the damage, you're standing in front of them or protecting them and soaking the damage in their stead. So yeah, those are the different ways we can team fight and just the different ways we can play it. Do you have any questions? Okay, did that all make sense? Okay, good. So I love this. I love this. I love this. I love this. So you're on the flank. We're not even doing anything, but we're pressuring them. They're in this neutral space. They're trying to contest this neutral space, and because of our flanking position, we're actually forcing them out of it. So this is actually very, very nice. We just have to be careful about getting caught. And so Yee's even here. So I don't know why Yee's here. Actually, it's kind of awkward for you guys. Yeah, I don't really know why Yee is flanking. Okay. Okay. Well, this is starting to get kind of weird. Okay. So I'm trying to decide how I feel about this. I guess this isn't bad. What do you think would be my main concern about this team fight? Okay, yeah, that's part of the reason. But more importantly, I would just say, just look at like everyone's position and tell me what you think about that. Right, yeah, right. Everyone's in like their own little micro battles, micro skirmishes. This is something I kind of talk about with team fights. Is that sure? Tech on a technicality, this is a 5v5, right? But is this right here a 5v5? No, right? It's a 3v1. Even though it's a 5v5 team fight, this guy's isolated, so it's not actually a 5v5. So this is really, potentially, this could be a very bad position for him, right? On the flip side, this Yi is in a 1v2, even though it's a 5v5 team fight, right? So the main concern is just how everyone's isolated right now. Um, so let's see. Oh, how do I check? Crap. Hold on 1 second. Let me hit all the buttons till I find one that does what I want. Yeah, I'm just trying to bring up like the items and. Oh yes, is that? Wait, I'm stupid. Okay, you're right. Okay, so right, so Yi is actually pretty fed. So this is a good position for him because he's on both the carries. He's super fed. So this is actually pretty good. This isn't too bad because Zigzag has range. So yeah, I would say this is actually a really good fight for you guys because Yi is fed. But if Yi was not fed, I would be trying to call this off earlier, obviously. But in this case, I think it's a very good position for you guys to be in. And this is a part of team fights that I didn't really talk about, but just pressuring can be very, very valuable, especially, let's say you're really weak, right? And this is something I love to do. Let's say, I mean, let's say I'm like 0 and 9, and I don't love feeding, but let's say for this example I'm 0 and 9, right? In the top line, 0 and 9, and I'm versing a Darius that is 9 and 0. Very scary. So we go into team fights, right? And let's say our teams, let's say, hold on, let me do some math real quick. Okay, let's say that the enemy team together, or no, sorry, everyone else aside from Darius has 13 kills, right? And then on your team, everyone else aside from you has 21 kills. Or even less. We could say they have 14. Let's say they just have like 14 kills. Or 13 even. But for the sake, we'll just say 14. Say they have 14 kills. So, I kind of already hinted this out by the way I drew it. But if we can take this guy out of the fight, then we're taking 9 kills from this team. Instead of having 21 kills total in the team fight versus our team's 14, we subtract 9, and now it's 13. They only have 13 kills, and now this is a winnable team fight. Because while the scoreline is 21-14, when we take Darius out of the team fight, we're not worth anything, right? Whereas Darius has high value. So we're taking those 9 kills out, and now it's actually a winnable fight for us. So you can do this for anyone. Let's say the AD carry is really fed and we're really weak, right? We could use pressure. Like we could walk up on them because if you're a carry, even if the top laner is kind of feeding, you still have to be concerned about them. And even if you're not concerned about them, you still have to have an answer to what they're doing. So let's say the team fight's happening over here. The AD carry is standing back here. The tanks are up here, right? We can kind of sit back here and dance back and forth and kind of pressure the AD carry without committing to anything and force them to play back here when they have a lot of kills. Meanwhile, our team can engage this team fight and start fighting these guys. So even without kills, we're effectively helping our team win the team fight because we're isolating the most fed carry. And let's say worst case scenario, this guy's super fed, right? And let's say it's a Tristana. We're right here, we're the red X. He's the blue X. Let's say he jumps in on us. If we're playing smart, we should already be considering this, right? So we just back up whenever he jumps in. And so he's going to be trying to attack us, and we're gonna tether. Do you know what tethering is? Yeah, so we're just gonna tether. We're gonna tether his auto attack range. Whenever he steps up towards us, we're gonna step backwards. Whenever he falls back, we're gonna chase him. And so he's gonna keep trying to attack us, and the whole time he's doing this, our team is fighting and killing. So he's not getting any value. He's just chasing somebody that's 0-9, right? So this is one of the things I'll do, like in team fights if we need to fight team fights, but I'm super weak and my team's actually decently strong. Just one thing to consider, but pressuring in general can have really high value in team fights, and you don't even necessarily have to be feeding. You could just be doing neutral. Let's say you're like 1-1. You could do the same thing versus someone that's fed, and it's even better for you because you'll have more pressure since you're not weak, right? You could still maybe take one of these carries out. Exactly. Yeah, this game. I mean, there's not too much to say about this fight. It's very well played. Again, when we're in these situations, we have to be considering what kind of fight is this? Because again, even though it's a 5v2, this is not a 5v2. This is a 1v2. So if we can fight these guys, sure, let's chase. But in this case, oops. In this case, the rest of our team's back here. E's back here. This fight is done. If we can't kill these guys, there's nothing to do here. We should back off because these guys could turn this and just get a quick kill on us real quick if they're fed. So at this point, we cancel the chase, we back off. And then from here, we just got some kills. So whenever we get kills, we should get something out of it. Anything. Could be anything. Could be a jungle. Like we invade the enemy jungle, we still camp from them. Could be a scuttle crab. Could be a tower plating. Could be getting a good wave crash. But we want to try to get something out of it, some kind of reward for that person not being able to be on the map, right? In this case, there's lots of objectives up. There's Dragon, there's Baron, there's even a weak bot tower. So we just need to decide what we want to do and have our team commit to it. So in this case, I would tell my team to go take the Dragon, and then I would tell somebody to come with me to take this tower at the same time. Or the alternative, how late into the game is this? Shoot, 22. No, you could do a Baron, but I think it'd just take too long to get up there as a team. So yeah, I would just stick to this. So yeah, we go and we can secure 2 objectives. Because do you need 5 people at Dragon at 20? No, right? 22 minutes, you don't need 5 people. So have your Yi there. Tell Yi to go Dragon because you still need the smite to secure it in case these guys decide to contest. And then you could tell like Zillion to go over there to help Yi, right? So it's not just so it's a possibly a 2v2 if it turns to the worst case scenario. And then you could have Ashe come with you to attack the tower. Or you could do the opposite. You could have Ashe at the Dragon and Zillion with you at the tower. Either one works. By the way, we split up our focuses so we can maximize what we're getting because, again, we don't need 5 people to secure the Dragon. We only need 2. We actually have everybody alive, so we could even be more lenient with our numbers here. But look, you can see how kind of everyone's spreading out doing their own thing. I mean, we might still get the Dragon here, but we're not accomplishing as much as we could. Like, this guy's getting zoned off of a wave, especially if Kaisa comes down here. You are pressuring this, which is nice, but okay. I think it would still be better. So this turns out pretty decent, but I think it would still be better to play it with 6. First of all, because like we just saw, the issue with this is that we're overextending. It's very risky to do this with how low the death timers are. Um, and inhibitors, like actually killing them isn't that big of a priority. And here's why. The inhibitors are really nice to have, right? They create a lot of pressure. They're very high value. But what's even more valuable is this, the tower that stops us from hitting the inhibitor. Once we break the tower, we permanently have access to that inhibitor. So we can take it at any point that we're in an advantageous position and we can take it for free, right? So dying for the inhibitor is not worth it if we're not specifically accomplishing something. In most cases, we could just wait for the next team fight to take it, or we could take it at a more opportune time. Um, so in this case, I don't think the inhibitor has much value here, whereas this outer tower, it's very easily accessible, especially considering that we're already here on the boss side of the map, and it's low HP. So that's why I would focus on getting this instead. And you have a Ziggs, he could just satchel charge it and kill it. But you want to work kind of in pairs because, again, worst case scenario, there's two people live. There could be two people for at any point like showing up to one of these events. So you want an answer for it. If two people show up bot lane, Ziggs might die. So you want to be there so you can help with that, but also so we can get the tower. And then again with the dragon, if two people show up at dragon, we want to make sure that we can still secure it and win the fight. So maybe there's only 3 of you that survive. In that case, I would just have everyone go dragon. So that way we can secure the dragon. We don't want to split up our forces when it, worst case scenario, they could show up at dragon or the tower and get a kill out of it. Does that make sense? Okay. Alright, and then this, it works out, but I think this is just too risky. I don't think this is the right call, even though the outcome is good. This is a very nice kill to get, though. Also, I kind of misplayed that, but it's okay. Alright, I do like that you're taking jungle camps. So if we know it's safe to take them, like we should always snag jungle camps. They're just so, it's just so valuable. I don't see people do it enough as top laners. They think that like jungle is a no-go as a top laner. We kind of talked about it yesterday. Personally, I do not like taking our jungler's camps if he needs it for XP and gold. I'll only take it if I have a specific reason to do it. That's just my specific thought on it. Some people know they can carry, or they're always focused on like themselves being in a position to carry, so they'll take all the camps they can take. But me, I like to play for our win condition or our team fight or whatever it is. So I'll let my jungler get all the XP and gold he needs, and I'll only get take a jungle camp if maybe he's invading, so we can kind of neutralize his game but give ourselves an advantage, or if we specifically need something. Yeah, so again, how much value does this tower have? Not too much, right? It's pretty late in the game. Even if it was a full HP tower, we could kill it very fast. But the lower health these objectives are, the less value they have, the less worth it is to die for it or to overextend for it, because at any time we could just come back and kill it, right? There's kind of an exception for these towers because they heal, but that's kind of something you need to weigh out yourself if it's worth dying for. In this case, these towers, any damage you do to it's permanent, so there's no rush to take it at any point. The difference between the tower having, difference between the tower having this much health compared to 0 health is so little that it doesn't even matter. It might as well be dead because you can take it at any time. So don't overextend for it, don't die for it if it's low HP. But also, again, it's one of those easily obtainable objectives. It's on the outermost objective at 23 minutes. We shouldn't be in a rush to take it. Yep. And that's another thing. I mean, you've kind of just mentioned it, but before team fights, and I think we might have talked about this yesterday, but before team fights, we want to try if applicable. Sometimes we can't, but in most cases, if we can get a recall off, we can buy items, then we should do that before the team fight. We should maximize our gold going into the team fight, because if you have 1k gold into the team while you're team fighting, that's 1k worth of extra damage, extra resistances, etc. that you could have that you don't. Um, and if it's an important team fight and I don't have enough to get a very valuable item, I like to get like stopwatch. Let's say it's one of the last team fights of the game, and like the most I could do is like a pickaxe or something, and it's like 40 minutes. A pickaxe isn't, or like 30 minutes. A pickaxe isn't going to make much of a difference, whereas stopwatch can. So in those cases, I like to go stopwatch. By the way, just try and try and get your try and use up all your gold before you get into these team fights, if applicable. Again, sometimes there's exceptions for that, and that kind of exception would be if you are forced to stay on the map for whatever reason, and then you see that team fight's getting ready to break out that you have to participate in. In that case, the items don't really matter because the team fight takes precedence. But if we can communicate, like, hey, this isn't a good fight for us, then we should be communicating that. Make sense? Good. Okay, let's talk about this. Let's talk about this. Okay. So, something that we need to identify when it comes to these late stages is we need to be looking at where everybody is on the map and considering what their plan of action is, or considering kind of what the most viable move for us is going to be. So in this case, looking at the information that we have here, is this a team fight that we want to take? Why? Exactly. The very first thing that's going to kind of tip me off that this is not a fight we want to take is this guy. This guy isn't here. It's 23 minutes. You can't risk taking a 4v5 at 23 minutes. It's just too risky. Again, there are exceptions. But majority of cases, 23 minutes, we don't want to risk a 4v5 when we could just have everyone group and do a 5v5, right? So man advantages play a big role in winning team fights. And we kind of talked about that with like isolation, right? When you have more people versus one person and those isolation points in a team fight, it's easier for you to win because that person's isolated, right? In this case, it's the same thing, but the distance is bigger. Because Ziggs is here, it's a lot of damage output that we're missing out on. And then again, it's not even a 4v5 because Ashe is way over here. She might as well be out of the fight. And by the time she walks over here, the fight's gonna be over. And Yi isn't here either. He's so far away that by the time Zillion gets back up, they'll just kill him, and then Yi's gonna be by himself. So immediately when we see this, and even before we see this, when we see Ziggs dead or in Fountain, we should be telling our team, like, hey, back off of this, just get vision around Baron. So here, instead of walking back into the bush, I would be pathing down like this, getting information here. Why would I want to sit here compared to like anything else, like whatever else I could be doing? Why would I want to sit there instead of recalling or sitting somewhere else? Why would I want to sit in this bush? Right. It's not overextending. And the most important part, well, actually, I'll let you explain this one to me if you can figure out why. But what is significant about this specific position? I mean, I guess, but let's look at the map right now. Baron's up right now, right? So why, in terms of like a team fight in Baron, why would this be a significant position? This kind of leads into something we talked about earlier. Yeah, the neutral space, right? We're getting more control over the space. The best part about this is that they don't even know we're here, assuming it's not worded, right? They don't even know we're here, and we're getting control over the space because when we get here, we can identify, okay, there's nobody in this area, right? Um, so it gives us position here. It gives us all this vision. The bush is very important, right? And we kind of talked about this yesterday, but if you're in this neutral area, the issue with the bushes is that obviously you don't know what's in them. So if you're here, you might have control over this space, but you don't know what's here and even kind of beyond because it kind of limits your vision, right? So getting vision in these bushes is important when you're contesting the space so that you can guarantee that there's nobody in these positions to catch you off guard, right? Especially here. This position is significant because it's so close to the Baron, and a lot of times you'll see the carries sitting around this position attacking the Baron. So it gives you very good access to them. But in this case, it secures those choke points, right? The strategic uh, location for taking this over is that it guarantees we don't have to walk through this funnel and potentially die to somebody setting up, something in this bush. Um, sorry. Um, and it pretty much allows our team to walk through this point or walk through the lane and know that this area is secured because you have control over it. So now they can get into this neutral space, this big surface area, right? And they can start contesting the objectives more safely with more information. And one thing I'd say too is you might also want to get, if you're here, you could throw a trinket down here, and this would give you all the information you need about flanks. So you secure this space here, you secure pretty much all this because we'll get vision of this area, right? And so it really limits their zone of control. You don't have to be worried about not having information because you'll know if they're not in this area and they're not in here, they're more than likely somewhere over here, right? So it gives you more control. Does that make sense? Right. So because Baron's up, we don't have any vision. That's why I would do that. And essentially, we just want to wait until Ziggs is up and we can contest the Baron. And we're just getting information to see if they start Baron, but also we want control over that space so that um, if we can wait it out and wait for Ziggs, we have a route for Ziggs for our entire team to come through safely in order to get access to the Baron. But in the case that Ziggs does not come, we either have to look for a pick, or I would even just say give up the Baron. Like if you can't get a pick, if it doesn't look like you can get a pick, then I would just say give up the Baron. Because it's not worth dying and then giving them Baron anyways in a 4v5, compared to just giving up the Baron. Because when you die and you give them Baron, they could probably just end the game off of it. Because they could just go mid and, well, 100% they get an inhibitor. They just go mid. So it's not worth dying for. And again, there are exceptions. Maybe they're really low while they're taking Baron, or you see an opening, then you could look to engage a 4v5. But in most cases, if we don't have if we don't have an advantage, we don't want to be taking a fight. And we definitely don't want to be taking fights at a disadvantage. And then, yeah, so this guy gets cut out. I would be pinging back. I would be pinging back before this guy even gets to this position. Like, when he starts walking through Tribush, I'd be spam pinging fallback. But also for the Yi, because you can see the Yi is doing the same thing. And if they die after you ping that, then that's their fault. They understood the risks, and they still took it. Right? But there's no reason to be fighting here because we don't have everybody. And sometimes I'll even type it out like, wait Ziggs. That's all you gotta do. Wait Ziggs. And they'll notice like, oh crap, yeah, he's right. Ziggs isn't up right now. Like, this isn't a good team fight. Alright, do you have any questions so far? Alright, I guess we could talk a little bit about the actual mechanics of the fight. I don't know how much it's gonna matter though. Yeah, so this is a mistake. Why is this a mistake? Exactly. It's just what we were talking about with like isolated fights, right? We just put ourselves in a 1v4 position, like actually 1v4, we're on top of 4 people. And we really have nothing to gain out of it. So what I would have done instead here is again, look to isolate fights. So I would be going for this guy. You could potentially go for the Kaisa, but this guy's right here. Like you could just start fighting him right now. So I would just go into the Tristana, look for a kill on her, and the good thing is if you kill her, you can just get out immediately. You can wall up here, or you can just run down and get away. So even though our teammates die, we secure kill, and then we get out. We can potentially stop them from getting Baron. But we also just minimize our losses in a way. Worst case scenario, she jumps away, you don't kill her, okay, we just leave. But we definitely wait, what? Oh, that was Dustwood. Wait, is that... Did it make you invulnerable? Okay, that's kinda OP. Well, that's actually kinda nuts. Wait, it makes you invisible and invulnerable now? That's actually kinda crazy. Holy shit. Okay. That's kinda busted. Interesting. Yeah. So, this turns out very, very well. Ooh, sick dodge. Love it. This turns out very, very well, but that's not to say there isn't stuff we could take from it. You know, there's still a lot we could have improved on, but very well played. I actually really like that. That was good. Nice. We get this easy objective. Oh, that was all you had questions about. Okay, perfect. Let me see what time I get on this recording. An hour. Okay, good.